The Tired and the Hurt by Natalie Arriola. We're sitting together in her living room, warm light pouring in through the north-facing windows, her easy chair swiveled toward the view. She's watching the passerby with a joyous curiosity. She tells me there's nothing like being outside in the afternoon light of a fresh spring day, though it's been years since she's basked in that glow, her days now spent in observation behind transparent blue. She seems to be caught in some final ecstatic reverie, her chair rocking and weaving with rising excitement as she swivels away from the windows and back toward me. She knows I've been writing about her, and she asks me what it is, then tells me she wants to read it. I say she can with a twinge of remorse, fully aware that she never will. Soon she will die, and we both know it. She stares at me through thick glasses, her hair gone gray so long ago it hovers in pure white wisps as fine as fresh-spun silk. Her skin is paper thin, and I can trace the blue-green veins across her forehead. I ask her about her youth, wondering what the world was like back then, what she was like. She tells me she was a wayward child who rejected women's work for the labor of the men in the fields. She tells me she always wanted everything to be beautiful, to find the luster even in the dry, hard dirt where they planted their crops. She tells me this is why she became a painter. She tells me to never grow old, to never allow your body to waste away until your days can only be spent sitting in a cluttered and dusty room, waiting to die. Suddenly her gaze grows distant, and I can see that she is dying. Her eyes turn milky white and hard like marble as she stares into that unfathomable abyss. I wake from the dream feeling nostalgic for a life I've never known. The woman in the dream is my grandmother. She died in 2022 at the age of 96. I never really knew her, never had a conversation with her like the one in the dream. I remember the last time I saw her alive. She was in her hospice bed in the tiny second bedroom of my mother's house, my childhood bedroom. Only now it was filled with cardboard boxes full of oil paints, and canvases of all sizes, both used and unused, were leaned against the walls and stacked up on the floor. These, the last remaining evidence of the artistic endeavors of two generations of women, one now on her deathbed, and the other tending to her with all the calm of a caged animal. And there she lay sleeping, her pale and deeply wrinkled hands resting lifeless at her sides, head tipped back, mouth dropped wide open as she drew her final rattling breaths. Next to her was an old TV tray holding a plastic cup, into which my mother had placed a foam-tipped oral swab used to dampen her tongue as needed. My mother began to administer the morphine as advised by the hospice nurse only the day before, and already Grandma had descended into a deep, coma-like sleep. My detachment from these women had grown so vast that though I lived only a few miles away, my mother had not thought to burden me with the knowledge of this change in Grandma's condition, had not even warned me of the approach of that inevitable moment when the morphine would be given and the woman I once knew as Grandma diminished irrevocably, led by the hand of that mysterious and soothing spirit into forever sleep. Arriving there that day, spurred from my willful absence by the mounting discomforts of guilt-ridden unconcern, I had no idea that my last chance to speak with my grandmother had already passed. By the end of her life, Grandma had become something of a pariah in our family. Her children did not love her, nor did her grandchildren. She was a burden, something we dealt with only because we had no other choice. Her children wove a tale about her cruelty and her callousness. She'd heaped abuse on her daughters. They were fat, ugly, stupid, worthless. If they chased boys, they were sluts. If they shunned male attention, they'd soon become old maids. If they showed her affection, they were quickly cast aside. If they ignored her, they were met with tearful reproaches. Nothing they did could possibly please her, and they were made to know that she wished they'd never been born. Without them, she could have run away to become an artist. They were the shackles which bound her to the doldrums of domestic life. "You're just like a dog in heat." The words issue from behind the closed screen door, finding my aunt on the brick steps of the front porch. She's just waved to a boy from the high school as he drove by in his pickup truck. She didn't know she was being watched, and now her mother barks at her to get inside. Later she sits on her bed. Grandma comes crashing through the door in a rage, calling her a whore and worse. Hand raised, she swings, but misses. "Why don't you give your old uncle a kiss?" My mother is cornered and nearly pinned there against the wall in my great-aunt's kitchen. She's maybe 15. The giant pores of the man's sweaty face loom large into her vision, his rancid, alcohol-laced breath hot on her cheek. She glimpses her chance for escape, darting under his arm and running out of the house and into the yard where she cries for her mother's help, her mother who ignores her, dismissing her accusations as childish fancy. "You'll never amount to anything." A silent intonation running through my mother's head, delivered in myriad moments of painstaking disregard. She's an artist and she knows it. Painting, drawing, photography. She has a natural gift for them all, which exceeds that of her jealous mother. Still, she looks to her for the approval she will never receive. Instead, her mother tells her she could be a nurse, a caretaker, someone who oversees the well-being of others. Her mother tells her this with unflinching and steadfast resolve, in spite of her social awkwardness, her inability to make friends, her rage over imagined slights, her general distrust of people, and the frustration which implodes only to explode in bursts of bitter, even violent anger. Her artistic endeavors ignored and brushed off, she abides, changing course and trying to please another way. She applies herself in school, bringing her mother the results of a test. She's scored a 98%, but it's not good enough. Why didn't she score 100? Echoes of a past I never knew, yet know so well that it eclipses my own. I hear my mother's reverberated screams traveling across decades from the very street I grew up on, the wide suburban street in the tiny town where my family's roots traveled deep into a history that begins in the Great Depression and ends with me. I see her as a young woman running down that street, darting out the front door of my grandmother's house, hysterical, driven to nervous breakdown by the relentlessness of her mother's evil tongue, which never ceases in its diatribe against her. Still, I remember summer afternoons sitting in Grandma's kitchen, hoisted into the window seat to watch as she slices watermelon or fresh tomatoes from the garden. She hands me the meaty slices, which I enjoy with vigor, the juices running down my face and onto the front of my swimsuit. Her refrigerator is always stocked with my favorite ice creams, and when I finally retire from the swimming pool, she serves chicken and dumplings. On quieter days, we spend hours building puzzles in her living room, or I pick out The Secret Garden for the umpteenth time from the collection of Hallmark Hall of Fame films she's recorded on her VCR, and I draw the curtains as she pops the tape into the machine. But the older I get, the fewer memories of her I have. I grew up and moved away and rarely saw her for any reason other than to ask for money which she provided almost without fail. In my absence, what impressions of her I have became vague, molded less by personal experience than by the tales spun around her, though I am no stranger to her cruelty. I recall her slights against me in indistinct flashes, insinuations of my laziness and the refusal to help during a particularly difficult period of financial struggle when the request came from genuine need rather than spoiled excess. Her bitter jealousy as she shot down an award I'd won for a photograph at the county fair. Rancor at the mere suggestion that a future male partner might cook, clean, or share it all in the household duties. She seemed to hold an undying resentment for all those who received anything which she felt herself to have been robbed of. If she had a legacy, it was one of ill will, and what she gave she did also receive, leaving her bereft of basic warmth, caring, and comfort from family in her final repose. She died later on that very day when I'd found her, vegetable-like, under my mother's care. I left shocked to have found her in such a state, unable to speak, breathing labored, swollen tongue splayed. And within an hour I received the call. She was gone. I returned to my mother's house once more to find her sallow, waxy body already growing cold. I marveled at the change, curious, even pleased to witness the enigmatic transformation of organic matter from life to death. I touched her forehead, her cheek, her hand. They were cool with an uncanny hardness, as though all the supple softness of the flesh resided in the breath which had left this hardened mold behind. Later, lost in a confused state of grief for a woman I hardly knew, I realized that I had experienced one moment of near closeness to her. It was about 4 months before her death. Her eldest sister had died at 102. She had been perhaps the last living person Grandma felt any honest connection to. I arrived at her house, entering through the back door, which she always kept unlocked. I found her there in the living room, stationed in her recliner before the bank of north-facing windows. Following the customary hug and kiss, I sat across from her on the couch. I'd come to ask if she planned to attend her sister's funeral, knowing that she'd rarely left the house for anything in the last 15 years. Her answer was a swift no. She would not be in attendance. Then we sat quietly. Just as I was about to pose some inane question, asked for no reason but to fill the silence, she cleared her throat and began to speak. She told of the last conversation she'd had with her sister. Though they hadn't seen each other face to face in some years, they still spoke on the phone every week. She'd asked her sister if she was ready to die, but her question was met with silence. No consoling confirmation to be had. Grandma said that she was ready to die whenever the good Lord took her. She couldn't understand why her sister would not feel the same. For a moment I held her gaze as a wave of sadness flashed there behind her eyes. But she quickly pushed it down, blinking and turning away toward her window view. It seemed as though she'd sat in that chair 1,000 years, frozen in suspended animation, watching the world unfold without her. She did not tell of what she saw out there, and I asked her no questions about her past. Instead, I settled deep into the creaky embrace of the threadbare couch, looking at her, but never seeing her, wondering about her 96 years of life, but afraid to ask or not caring to, letting her slip away without the least bit of urgency. My only thought of the next distraction, my only motive, escape.